We kick things off in the Manchester derby. It is the worst start for Manchester United in the top flight in 33 years. However, Mark Ogden just told me that year they went on to win the league. So there we are. Get your money on United to beat Liverpool at the top of the table come the end of the season. They were, of course, once again so poor against Manchester City. This is what Amorim had to say. I won't change my philosophy. If the United hierarchy, want it changed, you change the man. I'm not going to change my philosophy. I will play my way until I want to change. Mark Ogden joins us now. Oggy, it's funny because I was thinking, what can I ask you that I haven't asked you before about United? And I feel we've got nothing left. We've scraped the bottom of the barrel. Every week we're here talking about United, talking about their frailties, talking about where they've gone wrong. And yet again, we're sat here having that same conversation.
It's exactly what I feel like when I've got to ask Ruben Amorim a question at a press conference. You know, Ruben, are you going to change the way you play? It's not working, and the answer's the same every time. But I think that's what it boils down to. You can talk about the players not being good enough, but maybe some of them are better than they're showing right now. But what I got from that game was that the players just have no faith in the system. They're very confused. And yes, I mean, I know that United are tonight briefing that Amorim is safe for now. There's no plans at the moment to change him, but that will only last for so long because it clearly isn't working. Is it 8 wins in 31 league games? I mean, it's not relegation form, but it's not far off. So Man United have missed out on European football this season. They can't keep missing out on the Champions League because they'll just keep falling further and further behind. Because every time a club qualifies for the Champions League, they can guarantee between 80 and 100 million pounds. So those clubs that are in it are pulling further away from United. So Amorim is basically... he's on the clock now. He needs to get some results. They got Chelsea at home at the weekend. They got Brentford away the following week. But as he kept telling us last season, if United not in Europe this season, he's got a week to work between games on the training pitch. Is that making them better or making them worse? We'll soon find out.
The least flexible. I've said this before, and it's a bit like this conversation where you're thinking, what can we ask Mark that's different? What can we discuss that's different? And I repeat, he's the least flexible manager managing at elite level. Maybe that's ever managed in the game. Certainly in recent years. Every single manager tinkers a little bit, makes some subtle changes if need be. If need be. And if you're doing the same thing week in, week out, twice a week, and getting the same results, and yet you keep going back to the well, and it's just, you know, you're pulling up the same result, it's just absolutely bonkers. On top of that, he is right. You know, the Agatis of this world, and there are others, they have just been absolutely hopeless. But you have to figure a way how, right, if Casemiro hasn't got the legs to get around, and Agati's been hopeless, and Bruno Fernandes, I really want to get him a bit further forward. When you have a weak midfield like that, you cannot have 3 attacking players. You cannot. When your midfield is weak and your defence is suspect, but particularly in the midfield, you can't have Acuna, who didn't play, you can't have Ahmad and Mbeumo in front of that midfield. You can only have, I'm afraid, when you're as poor as they are, you can only have one, because you need to have an extra body in the middle of the park. Now, as a defensive player, or certainly a more natural central midfielder, that's what a normal manager would do. He would stem that flow until such time that he could go back to this. Do you know what I'm saying? If I'm in the midfield, if I'm playing, and we had this at Celtic at one point, Paul Lambert and myself. We had Lubo Moravcik and Ayo Berkovic, who you know from West Ham. 2 super talented players playing behind the striker. But if you put if you put the old band on them to measure their kilometres after the game, it's probably about half the rest.
Right.
And we used to get horsed when we played the better teams. We were okay against the weaker opposition. But when we went out and played in Europe at Lyon and other teams like that, we got a toasting in the middle of the park. And that's what's happening at Man United. They have a weak midfield, but it's weakened even more by having Bruno Fernandes playing deeper and having 2 attacking players. And trust me, this is all on Ruben Amorim. Because he knows this, but yet he continues in this stubborn attitude of doing the same thing. I honestly think he's a couple of games away from A, the players throwing him under the bus with all these leaks, because we know it's going to happen, or B, Ineos having to give him a single ticket back to Portugal because he's out his depth.
Do you think he cares?
He should.
I feel like at a stage now he's like, I'm not changing, sack me if you want. Please, get me out of here.
To that point, I think he should. And while it might have worked in Portugal and he had success with it, including in Champions League, now it's a bigger stage and it's a bigger ask. And now you're truly being tested and as a manager and a test that he's simply failing. And now, to Craig's point, he's not the first manager that says, I'm going to stick to my guns regardless, but it's never ended well. The most recent that comes to mind is Postecoglou. And we see how that finished with him. And albeit, at least he was true to his word in winning silverware in his second season. Now, Ruben Amorim kind of has rolled out this line, or this defence of his inflexibility since he's arrived. Now, it's one thing you arrive in October, November, whatever it is, you have a January transfer window, but then you have a summer transfer window, and Manchester United spent.
And you have summer training as well, because he always said, I didn't have time.
And you have summer training, to your point. Now you're truly being judged on how good a manager you are. It was easy to excuse or accept when it wasn't your team. You didn't have the pieces. You've had the opportunity now to build a squad around the way you play, the way that you insist on playing. You've had the opportunity to work with these players around the way you insist on playing. And now to have a worse start to the season than Ten Hag did, and we saw how that ended up for him, I think he's asking for a lot of trouble.
I think Postecoglou is a good example because, and we'll see how he gets on at Forest, but I have concerns about him trying to change the Forest way of playing, which has been successful for them, being stubborn, and they're going to be too open and get dragged down towards a relegation dogfight. This kind of start we're seeing here is just unacceptable as a Manchester United manager or any other manager of an elite level club. But it goes back to Shaq's point. What was good for the Goose in Japan, in the J League, and in Scotland at Celtic and the Scottish Premiership is not good necessarily in England, in the Premier League, where the teams are better, the teams are faster, the teams are stronger, and when you cough the ball up, they punish you. When you're coughing the ball up in Japan, with all respect, and you're coughing the ball up in Scotland against Hearts and Hibs, and Motherwell, the chances are you're going to get away with it. 8 times out of 10. What happened with Postecoglou was teams figured it out. They were happy for Spurs to go gung-ho, and when they coughed it up, they got punished. And he refused to change. And he's sacked. And he feels he shouldn't have been sacked in his comments lately from his press conference, but he was sacked, and he was rightly sacked for finishing because his league form was terrible. This guy's on the same boat. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I think he's a couple of defeats away from Ineos having to say goodbye. And that's just another embarrassment after another embarrassment, particularly with the way they dealt, and I've said this before, at this moment in time, they are not running the football side of it any better than the Glazers. Right? And we can talk about taking dividends out and running the club in debt. That's not my scenario. They are not running the football department any better at the moment, even with these new appointments, than the Glazers. And the Eric Ten Hag situation and how they crumbled after winning the FA Cup was a total embarrassment for them. And I think and Augie might correct me on this, but I think they're sitting there with their eyes closed behind the sofa, just hoping that this guy can somehow get the results, because then so they don't have to do what they did before and admit they've made another mistake.
Yeah, and how long do those people keep making it? Like Omar Barada, how long does he have left, Mark? How many lifelines does he have?
Well, to Craig's point there, the one person that is hiding behind the sofa with his hands in his head in his hands is Omar Barada, because he was hired from Man City 18 months ago with a big fanfare. This guy, chief operating officer at City, he's ready to run a big club like Man United. He comes in, and his first big decision is to appoint Ruben Amorim. He was the guy who drove that decision to appoint Amorim. That pretty much led to Dan Ashworth's departure, because Dan Ashworth didn't really impress Jim Ratcliffe with his suggestions of people like Gareth Southgate, Marco Silva, Graham Potter. I mean, you have to say that was a list that wasn't particularly inspiring either. But Omar Barada pushed really hard to get Amorim. Now, my question to Barada, if he was going to answer the question, is that when you hired Ruben Amorim, what was your due diligence? Did you speak to the guy who was 39 at the time, no experience of a major league in Europe? Were you going to say to him, look, this is a major club, a massive club that's in a real bad situation right now. How are you going to do it? And he's going to come and say, well, I'm going to play 3-4-3 no matter what. And if that's the question that Omar Barada asked, and that's the answer he got, and he still appointed him, well, what does that say about Omar Barada? So did Omar Barada ask the right questions of Ruben Amorim? Did he decide that, well, if it doesn't go well, they'll change it anyway? Because we have to remember, 6 months prior to that, Liverpool looked at Ruben Amorim and they really considered him after Xabi Alonso pulled out of the running. And they decided that to hire Ruben Amorim would be too much of a risk and too expensive because it would have cost them around £200 million just to bring in the players that would have fitted his system at Liverpool. So they went for Arne Slot. So Omar Barada has a lot to answer for now. Now, I'm not saying he's going to lose his job if Amorim loses his job, but this was his big decision. He went for the guy that he thought was a rising star in European coaching, but he didn't realise that the guy won't change his system. And if the system doesn't change, then the results aren't going to get any better. So Barada has a lot to answer for.
Say we're in a situation, yeah? 2 or 3 weeks down the line, he loses the next couple of matches. Oliver Glasner comes in. You know, someone who has done well at Crystal Palace, established, wants to make that step up. Can he do anything with this squad of players that he's inheriting? Or do we then have to wait for another transfer window for him to come in, to bring in his players? And we're almost in this vicious circle, I feel.
No, because if you're savvy enough and you're good enough, and don't forget he was successful in Germany, Oliver Glasner. If you're good enough to go into one of the most threadbare squads in the Premier League, in Crystal Palace, and achieve the results he's achieved, both in the league and with the Community Shield, but more so the FA Cup, with those resources, then you can get more out of this United squad than what Ruben Amorim is.
Right.
Absolutely. There's no doubt for me. Now, you know, you're going to hire a manager and all of a sudden they're back in the top 4 and, you know, they're back amongst it? No, because it still will have to be a process and it will still be expensive. But I think he's already shown more than enough that he can work with a squad that's far from perfect.
But this team is turgid. Look at that.
Yeah, but you got to go in. No, you know, Mazraoui's an international footballer.
Well, yeah, just because you're an international footballer.
Well, they're all international footballers. But I just want to ask you one thing, Oggy. There's been some reports today floating around that the players are losing faith. We've heard this before. Players are losing faith in Amorim, some of them, and they're about to throw him under the bus. We've seen that before. Any truth in that?
Listen, I've not heard directly that players are losing faith, but I've heard it from second-hand sources that they are. But that is an easy assumption to make. But you only had to watch the team yesterday to realise that the players are playing, and they look confused. You know, they look like they're playing out of position. Patrick Dorgu doesn't look comfortable on his position on the left-hand side. He just doesn't. And I think that Bruno Fernandes is another one that looks out of place. So the body language they're giving off is that they're not happy with the system. I've not heard directly that they are unhappy about it. And you know what footballers are like. Any excuse they can have, they will find it, and they'll moan about the system, they'll moan about being confused. But listen, if it's not working, then the players have every right to say, coach, we need to change this because it simply isn't working for us. And there's been so many bad results now. Like I said, 8 wins in 31 in the Premier League for Man United is abysmal. And there was a list of teams that they'd beaten during that time. And I think, apart from Everton early last season, I think all the teams he's beaten were either relegated or promoted. So, I mean, it's not a great look, is it? They haven't really got much of a list of... I mean, I think Aston Villa in the final game of the season, but apart from that, they've had a terrible run of results. And the teams they've beaten are teams that they really, really should beat. They're not beating anybody else.
What I don't get is, right, if you watch Portugal play in the international break, Bruno Fernandes plays further forward. We just saw his graphic there and how it's more difficult for him to be creative from a deeper position. You watch him playing for Portugal, he has the PSG pair who are excellent, Vitinha and João Neves, behind him. But he's further forward in a position where he can affect the game. It's where he should be. So, in that sense, when you already know you have a player to play behind, you're buying Benjamin Sesko. He's not been brilliant, I get that. But you're buying a striker, you have Bruno Fernandes behind him, but you go out and buy Mbeumo and Cunha when you already have Fernandes to play in that position, and you know you need to replenish the central midfield position with a more defensive midfielder or two. Now, I know they were talking about Belieber, and all that. But they really need 2 in there. So it says to me about recruitment. I've gone out and bought 2 players for a position that my club captain and best creator really wants to play. And I've left a gaping hole in the position that he's going to have to go back and play because I'm spending money elsewhere. None of it makes any sense. They needed 2 solid midfielders to be able to allow Fernandes to get further forward and buy Acuna, and buy both of them, but stick one of them on the bench. It just makes absolutely no sense. And he's in there playing deeper in central midfield, a position in a defensive aspect that's a little foreign to him, with 2 players, one that can't run and Casemiro anymore, and the other who's hopeless, and Agati. So you tell me how that is going to bring you success. It is absolutely bonkers.
Manchester City, meanwhile, of course, won that game by 3-0. It was Donnarumma's first start for Pep Guardiola's team. We were a little bit on the fence when it came to Donnarumma. It's like, is he really the sort of player that...
In what way? Only by his feet.
By his feet.
I think we were looking at Manchester City and we were thinking, is a new goalkeeper really the priority? You were like, well, James Trafford, he played well agast Brighton. Yes, he had such an opening game. Yeah, but I think that was why the conversation...
I think the worry was Donnarumma looks a bit patchy with the ball at his feet. Look, there is no... James Trafford's a good goalkeeper, but you have, between Thibaut Courtois and Donnarumma, and maybe there's 1 or 2 more, you can argue about who's the best goalkeeper in the world. So when you have that opportunity, as bad as it is for a young keeper who's gone back to your club after his time at Burnley and has had a difficult start to the season, but he's a good goalkeeper, as much as that comes into it, you have the opportunity to buy one of the best.
And the thing was, before I got interrupted, he was really good yesterday.
He was.
And you could just see him control everything.
Well, the one thing you say about Donnarumma is he's a presence.
Yeah, that's the word.
Has a presence.
Yeah.
Which Manchester City need. And comes down to the question of, again, managers kind of changing their philosophies and adapting to what's needed, who you have available to you. That hasn't changed, but that doesn't mean that Donnarumma comes in and all of a sudden thinks he's Edison and is making cheeky little outside of the foot right passes to defenders. He does what he's good at and then let the others kind of fill in those blanks in terms of how you pass and how you break teams down. So maybe that's the thinking here of Pep Guardiola and in bringing in Donnarumma. But there's no questioning that in terms of just pure goalkeeping talent, in terms of pure shot-stopping talent, Donnarumma is in the top 3 in the world.
I'm sure City fans don't care if 9 times out of 10 he lumps it up the field.
Yeah, he can lump it up.
And his manager may moan, but he'll say, well, drop me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Let the defenders pass it around.
And in truth...
Do what, Jack?
Pass it around.
How many times do you hear crowds booing and hissing when a goalkeeper launches it long? They don't. They get... Actually, I think there's more concern for supporters, the match-going supporters that sit in the stadium, sitting there biting their fingernails every time a goalkeeper's passing it across his 6-yard box. So, and if you look at the possession stats, even in this game, and at the start of the season, maybe Man City, although they've still got defensive issues, we saw that at Brighton, and the United game is not really a gauge, if we're being honest, about where they are. But maybe they're going to try and get away from this tiki-taka, 75% possession football, and maybe go a little bit more direct up to Erling Haaland, maybe squeeze the game a little bit more. And if that is the case, in that sense, it's less of a problem if a goalkeeper is not passing it out from the back.
Presence is a great word, isn't it, that Xhaka used there, Mark?
For Donnarumma, absolutely. And I think one thing that we haven't really discussed about Pep's decision to sign him is that I just think Pep has realised the game's changing. I mean, Thomas Tuchel made the point last week, didn't he, by saying that long throws and long balls are back, crosses are back. It's become a much more direct game in the last 12 to 18 months. And I think Guardiola's realised that you need a goalkeeper who can handle that. I mean, every corner we've seen this season, no matter which game you're watching, it's a wrestling match in the penalty area. I mean, we've seen Man United shortcomings in that area. And Donnarumma comes in at 7'10" or whatever he is, and he can handle it, can't he? He can deal with people that are pushing him around, shoving him around. He's got the presence to deal with that and to make it a calmer situation for City. So if that's what Pep has seen, he's obviously been, he's spotted the trend in football right now. So Donnarumma has certainly answered that one for City, and they have come more direct. I was watching the game yesterday, and I noticed how a lot more balls, further forward, straight quickly from the fullbacks. And Kujanov, who I think we've all kind of mocked at times, considering how poor he's been, he looks to have gained about 2 stone in muscle in the last 6 months. So he's obviously been built up. And again, it's the physical side and the physical strength of Man City, which is a change from certainly the early years of Pep Guardiola when they were all kind of small ball players. He's definitely evolved the team to be a much more physical presence, and you've got the ultimate example of that in Erling Haaland up front.
It's quite a simple conundrum, isn't it, really? And it's unfortunate for Trafford, but every manager tries to bring a player in a certain position with a goalkeeper up front, midfield, fullback, that is going to be better than the one before. He's going to make the team better. And there is absolutely not a question on the planet that Donnarumma makes Manchester City a better side.
Let's just remind you how things then look at the top of the Premier League. After 4 matches, Liverpool sitting at the top, 100% record, of course. That win for Manchester City moves them up to 8th. For a lot more on this, be sure to check out the latest edition of the Gab and Jules podcast, which is available to listen to now. Liverpool, of course, are perfect, and boy, do they love leaving it late at the moment. That 95th minute penalty from Mo Salah proving to be the difference between them and Burnley. 4 wins out of 4. Yet when it comes to entertainment, maybe we're not getting quite from Liverpool what we're expecting. Mark Ogden is with us. The boys talked about this yesterday, and I'm intrigued to get your view, because I think maybe former players look at it different than fans. If you think back 12 months, Mo Salah was arguably the best player in the world. When Liverpool went to Old Trafford, beat Man United 3-0, he was fantastic. He just started the season so brilliantly, and I feel that he has trended down. As the season went on, obviously the game against PSG, those 2 legs, he was anonymous. He started this season. I know he's got 2 goals, but has he really contributed as you would expect your best paid player to play?
No, not yet.
But how much time do you give him? How much is his presence on the pitch an influence that maybe we don't quite understand?
Well, you're not going to... Look, are we having a conversation here about dropping Mo Salah?
I think I'm just asking, why is he not delivering what he used to?
Well,
why have we seen this drop?
There's this... Shall I get the terminology right?
Tell me. Father Time?
Father Time.
OK.
Mother Nature.
Yes.
As I say. It's always wrong. Everything I say in this show is wrong.
Yes.
You lost me at 360.
I was correct. So you have... It's only been 6 months, so that's not really a factor. But, these things start creeping in. He's got his big new contract. Doesn't seem to me to be a player who loses his desire because he's got a squillion dollars in the bank. I think it's more, if it was just about that, he'd have gone to Saudi Arabia. So it's about success for him. It's about goals. It's about the team winning. It's about the big trophies, the Champions League and all these. But there is this thing that affects every player, not just confidence, affects every player, called form. And you don't know when it's coming, and you don't know when it's going. And sometimes when you're out of form, it's hard to find it. And sometimes you're on the training ground, and you put an extra half an hour or an extra hour in, or you come in early and you go in the gym, because you're trying to find something to get back in your groove. And what Mo Salah has shown over the piece, that when he has lost form, he's found something to get back in the groove and scored big, huge, important goals. The question will be, and we've had this, which is slightly subsided by the signings of Alexander Isak and Hugo Ekitike, is that when this happens, and it happens to everybody, are others going to be able to step up and bridge the gap of his magnificent record? And I think the answer is, with the signings, it should be. I can't answer you if this fall-off at the moment is going to be a 10-month, a 6-month, a 3-month, or he's going to shrug it off. We just don't know that. But what we do know, he's not looking as sharp as he was. And, he's shown before that he can get back to this big game player. But as every year goes by and every season goes by, it does become more and more difficult. It's as simple as that.
I can imagine Liverpool fans going, "You idiot, Thomas. He scored the winning goal. He's the reason they got the 3 points. He was the one who stepped up and took the penalty." For those big moments, is the risk worth the reward if he's not doing enough during the 90 minutes?
But we've had this conversation about Mo Salah before. and you only have to watch a Liverpool game with Stevie Nicol to kind of know how frustrating Mo Salah can be for 89 minutes. Whether he scores...
Well, they're both frustrating.
Well, yeah, whether he scores in the first or the 90th. That's who Mo Salah has been from time to time. There have been moments where he's been simply brilliant throughout, but there's been others where it's been frustrating, but still, come the moment, steps up the man. And that for me is no different. And while a lot of the focus has been on the likes of Wirtz and Ekitike and Isak, who is still to come, Mo Salah is also playing in a new front three and trying to get that understanding as well. Now, I'm less concerned...
With a new fullback behind him.
With a new fullback. So I'm less concerned about Mo Salah figuring that out than I am about so many other, not just players in Liverpool, but so many other teams in the league. And the cushion to all of this is, while Liverpool have been decidedly average by their own standards, they are perfect.
Sure.
And that gives you a platform to at least build on. Had Liverpool lost those 4 games, and let's be honest, they've not been great, but now all of a sudden there are a lot more questions about Arne Slot, there's a lot more questions about the signings and how you turn that around. While you're winning games, while you're picking up points, it's great that you can figure those parts out without really any sense of panic. And that's where Liverpool are right now. Not playing well, they know that as much as anyone, but you also know that they're going to get it right.
Oggy, what do you think?
Well, throughout the last 2 or 3 months of the season, Salah did stop scoring a little bit. I think maybe at January, February time, he was on course to break Erling Haaland's record for most goals in a season on 36. I think he was maybe 7 short, and he didn't do it. So he did slow down a little bit. And obviously, he's 33 now. Clearly, he's got the African Cup of Nations coming as well this season. So whether he's kind of trying to pace himself because he knows he's got a difficult summer, but Salah's one of the cleverest players I've ever seen, and I don't think it's insignificant that both his goals this season have come in at the last kick of the game. It basically conserves his energy and glides through games the first 60, 70 minutes. And he knows that it becomes important towards the end of the game when he gets more space or he can create an assist. And I think he probably knows himself that by bringing in Isak, by bringing in Ekitike and by bringing in Wirtz, that Liverpool are planning for a future without him. So I think all of it comes together that maybe he's not going to be the guy that scores 25, 30 goals a season anymore, but he will still score, as Craig says, the big important games. If you need a guy to score a winning goal in the Champions League quarter-final second leg, it's going to be Mo Salah. But maybe he's evolving his game to get more out of himself. And I think, why did Liverpool give him a 2-year contract in the summer? Well, they couldn't afford to let him go as well as Trent Alexander-Arnold. They had to keep Mo Salah, but they've kept him and they've also built for life after Mo Salah as well. And I think at the minute we're just kind of seeing the in-between of that, but I would never write off Mo Salah. I think he's up there with Thierry Henry and Eric Cantona and Cristiano Ronaldo as the best player the Premier League's ever seen.
It's not a bad trait to have, though, isn't it? That we just saw that graphic there. When you're not playing well, Xhaka touched on it. It is winning games late. Just keep grinding away.
Yes, yeah.
It's what wins you leagues.
And psychologically for the opponents, I imagine, like you came up against that Manchester United side who are renowned with Fergie time. Things. Yeah. It's in your head.
You had that game at Newcastle. He brings the kid on.
Yes.
Game was getting away from him. He scores a great goal. Bournemouth, the first game of the season. Arsenal was late. This one at the weekend was late. It's not perfect. You don't, as a player and as a manager, you don't want it. It's lovely to be 3-0 up with 10 minutes to go and you can just control the game. That's the perfect scenario, but you don't win a league by doing that every week. It's just not going to happen. And grinding results out is what Arsenal are going. If Arsenal are the main contenders, and we think they are, they're going to have to grind results out this year.
Yes.
Not always going to be perfect. They're going to have to grind it out. And City the same. The big question is whether they can. But it's a good trait to have from a Liverpool perspective, is that the machine is not that well oiled at the moment, but they're getting the results, and they're getting the results late. So they're just keeping hammering at that door. And when you get back in that dressing room after you've ground away, it's almost like you're beating a team 3 or 4-0. Right. You just keep them going and you're hammering away. That's what Liverpool are doing at the moment.
It is the opening round of matches of the Champions League. It's Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday this week. So if you take a look at Tuesday's game, some interesting ties. Spurs against Sevilla, Real Madrid taking on Marseille, Juve, Dortmund, Benfica against Karabakh, PSV taking on Union and Athletic Club taking on Arsenal.
Oh, Europa League this week.
Sorry.
Europa League on Thursday?
I don't think so, Craig.
Sorry, I
don't interrupt my...
You just love your Europa League.
Mark is in Spain and went to the press conference with Arteta ahead of this game.
You're getting a lot of questions about winning the Champions League, and understandably it's the start of the season, but Arsenal are probably the biggest club that's never won it. Is there a pressure that you feel with that, because Liverpool won it multiple times, Man United, Chelsea? You want to win it, obviously, but how important is it to win that first one for Arsenal?
Well, that tells you, with our long history, how difficult it is, because we haven't won it yet, and that's the opportunity. That's how I see it. You know, the pressure is the opportunity that thrives, that energy, that willingness to be better every single day, to make decisions that are in that direction, and every decision. Then, if we win not that much, every decision has to be with that standards and with those expectations, and let's give our best chance to try to do it.
And do you feel that going close actually helps? I mean, you worked with Pep Guardiola at Man City for a few years when they were knocking on the door. Does that disappointment ultimately help you get over the line?
Yeah, and the big clubs, I mean, they try 7, 8, 9 times, they win 2. And so in this competition, it's going to be 1, and you fail much more than you succeed. That's the nature of that. That's the history of our club, and that's what we want to change.
Arsenal go into this game, Oggy, off the back of that victory against Forest, but it was the key players within that win, I think, that will give Arsenal fans a lot of optimism going into the start of the season. Of course, Eze, we saw what Zubimendi did, Gyökeres, Madueke, all new signings, and all were key to show that even without Odegaard, obviously went out early, and without Saka, Arsenal aren't quite reliant on those big stars as much as they have been in the past.
Yeah, I think that's the point. There's no sense of panic about Arsenal. Arsenal are playing right now. You would definitely expect them to get a result out here in Spain. And, you know, they were really stung by what happened against PSG in the semi-final last season. And we know that Arteta probably went over the top by saying that Arsenal were the best team in the competition. But they did run them close in the end. And I think they think that this time they can go that extra step. But obviously, you've got a lot of big clubs. Liverpool, PSG, Real Madrid will have the same ideas. But Arsenal really look like a team that can now go all the way.
I thought Madueke's performance for England and Serbia really did him a power of good. You know, not that he was lacking any belief, but just his all-round performance. England's performance as well, but some of those players, you know, Rodgers, Madueke, the way that he ran in behind, the way that he ran at defenders, I think it's just going to give him, and has given him, a lot of confidence. He's one of, and Stevie's talked about this, he's one of the most kind of old, a little bit of a throwback, is that he doesn't want to come inside all the time. I mean, he will do, but he wants to drive at fullbacks. You don't really see that much anymore. Maybe Mo Salah, actually, we're talking about him, is one that likes to take the ball for a dribble. Madueke is like that. And it's difficult. We saw him giving Kerkez a difficult time at Anfield. Kerkez stood up reasonably well in the end. This side is good enough to win the Champions League and the Premier League. This squad, not side, it's squad, because it's going to be a squad game. There is absolutely no doubt it is good enough to win both competitions. Maybe not in the same year, but they haven't done it. They haven't done it. You know, other Arsenal sides have in the Premier League, and that's what we've talked about. That Mikel Arteta has the tools, and he's been given the tools to get the job done. And I think that's where Oggy was going with the questioning, is like, you know, is there a pressure? There has to be a pressure. Sure. And I think the pressure's more in England in terms of the Premier League than it is the Champions League. I don't think there's a doubt about that. There is more. My opinion is there is more of a pressure for Arteta to get over the line in England, and be it over Man City or Liverpool, whoever it is, than there is to win the Champions League, as good as that would be. I think England are the nuts and bolts for him. They are good enough to do both, but in my opinion, this team will not believe in itself that it can do it until it wins the Premier League.
Yeah.
I think it goes out and wins the Premier League, this squad, before it wins the Champions League. And I think once it does that, if it does that, it can power forward. But there's no doubt the squad is good enough to win these competitions, but they have not done it.
But I think the narrative's changed a little bit, hasn't it? Like, if they were without Odegaard and without Saka just last season, I'd be sat going, can they get a result in Bilbao? Well, can they get it done? Yeah. But we now know that the people they've brought in means that you aren't crying. You aren't going, oh, but look at the injuries, look at what you're doing. They've kind of addressed the positions they needed to.
I think the narrative has changed because the expectation continues to grow with each passing season. They haven't won the league or more to the point, the Champions League. I'm certainly with Craig that I'm thinking that the league certainly has to be Arsenal's bread and butter. And to Augie's question about the big clubs who've won the Champions League, as much as this is a Champions League week, all those clubs, the Cities, the Liverpools, the Chelseas, have won their domestic league and have built on that. And while, yes, Liverpool won it without winning the league and in that spell, I think the expectation certainly is a little bit different for Arsenal. And they've spent to bolster the squad and to address their issues. And show, again, with each passing season, with each passing nearly miss for Arsenal, that pressure grows with Mikel Arteta. And I have to hold my hand up and listen, I've been very critical of Gyökeres so far this season. I thought while Madueke was absolutely outstanding against Forest, I thought Gyökeres taking of that goal from the ball from Eze was exactly what Arsenal need and have been missing. Now, I maintain some of my criticisms around Gyökeres.
Stubborn.
But that was a striker's finish. That was a striker's finish that Arsenal had been missing for quite some time.
The deficiencies of Kai Havertz in that position. And of course, I do believe when fit, Kai Havertz is a very good squad player. He is. He is, but they needed somebody. Now, whether Gyökeres is going to be the answer, we'll find out at the end of the season. But he was where a striker should be. And you may think, well, that's a simple tap-in. It is, but you have to be there. You have to be in the right position. You have to make the right runs. If you go back and ask Liverpool fans when they were winning the Champions Leagues, but not the Premier League, they were that was great. Celebrations, great achievements, but they wanted the Premier League, didn't they? 30 years of it. And it's been over 20 for Arsenal. And so these things are great. Of course they are. These flagship tournaments and events and the gravitas. But Arsenal are striving to be back in the top of the tree in England. As much as they want to have a great Champions League season, and there's no reason why they shouldn't, their nemesis is Liverpool, City, Chelsea, and all these other teams that have won. Leicester City have won it, the Premier League. This Arsenal side, in the last 20 years, have failed to do so. They're in pole position to go and get the job done this year. But that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Welcome in then to the latest edition of Extra Time. Craig and Shaka are with us. Do you remember the first time you weren't the best player on a team? Good question.
What?
Well, I suppose the theory is because you're a professional, you were always the star of the team, the best player.
What, not in the professional, though?
No, not in the professional. Oh, crikey.
Hold on.
Well, define the question.
Right, so when you were younger, say when you were at 10, you must have been the best player on the team.
No, I wasn't.
I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to a proper player.
Oh, okay. I feel...
Well, I never felt that, because that would be big-headed.
Right.
But I was the best.
Yeah, there you are.
No, I'll be honest. When I went, playing in local football...
Yeah, what age are we?
10.
What age little Craig?
Little Craig, when he was 8.
Yes.
Probably the same size as you.
Well, yes, that's okay.
Don't call me Little Craig.
I'm calling you little Craig in that term.
No, I was Big Craig then.
Oh, were you?
Shut up. You
Big mouthy Craig.
Making a hasty, early
Right, come on, get on with it.
entrance into that hospital.
Right, get on with it, Big Craig.
Well,
do you want me to call you Big Craig?
Tell you what, wouldn't it be great if you were going in for your liver operation?
Yep. Right.
The surgeons come in and take the mask down, and it's us. Stevie.
What, you're doing the op?
Yes. Big scalpel.
And Stevie's there with his glasses.
Stevie's there, but he's got a bag of chips.
And a Coke.
I got it.
Right, Big Craig.
15.
15.
When I first went to the national trials to get in the Scotland's under-15 schoolboys, which was big back in the day, and when I got through all the trials and I made the squad, I always looked at some of these other boys, all from sort of Glasgow, full of confidence, and went, wow.
Right.
Like, they are much better than me. But they never, things changed. Most of those
He was
lads,
about to say they never made it like me.
No, they did, but then some of them stumbled, and that's.
I didn't stumble. I was Scottish Player
I
of
had
the
many
Year.
stumbles.
Scottish Player of the Year.
I give them my autograph.
But when I stumble, I get back up.
No teeth at all.
God, I hope your surgeons get no teeth. I think it's the last thing you see before they give you the
So,
anaesthetic.
Shaka, you didn't play goalkeeper until you're older, or what?
I first played in goal at
37.
10. I first played in goal at 10 years old. But
Okay.
so I went up from a zonal team. I then was forced to play in goal. Made the national team at 10, national under 12 team.
Okay.
But on that team there was Dwight York and Russell Latterby. So it's pretty easy for me to say exactly when I
But
knew.
it doesn't really matter, does it?
What was that? Yeah, well, I don't understand this goalkeeper bashing we've had all day today. I feel aggrieved.
Jose Mourinho stated that he is not managing a European team anytime soon. To save their season, should Manchester United consider hiring him to replace Amorim as their interim manager until they find a long-term replacement at the end of the season?
No, he won't go. I don't think he'd go back there. It was, even though a lot of the people have probably left, I could see him.
I could see him in one of my former clubs. Let me just say.
No, I could see him
West
sit.
Ham. You boys are terrible.
Right.
No, he won't. I think he's taken too many jobs where it's just too difficult to turn it around, and his reputation is just taking a whacking every time. The latest one was it Galatasaray or Fenerbahce? I can't remember which one he was at. So I could see him having the gravitas that he has in his own country, waiting for Portugal to potentially have a poor World Cup, Roberto Martinez getting the sack, and him stepping in at his age, because he doesn't need to prove anything at club football. He's been there and he's won it all. And I think he's shown he hasn't really got that Midas touch anymore on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, that's the word that I was trying to remember him saying. You've got Midas, because you did say Midas.
Midas, I'm flexible.
Well, because...
Unlike Ruben Amorim. So...
Because Midas is right.
Yeah, Midas, exactly. That's what you're flexible. Because Midas is wrong.
I'm not wrong every single time.
May I continue? I don't see the point in him going back into the day-to-day grind.
Right.
I just don't. He's been brilliant at it, and he's not anymore. I could see him managing a national team in obviously his own country. That's where maybe I'm wrong. That's where I could see him.
Nuno will go to West Ham, will he? Can you imagine?
Oh, we'd have him.
I think that kind of makes sense.
At this point, we'd have almost anybody. Oh, boy.
Well, that would be funny, because they wanted to get away from David Moyes and the success he had because it was too defensive. They've gone to a manager who wants to try and play a bit more open. It's not worked. Might work, I don't know, but unlikely. And Nuno Espirito Santo, we saw what he did at Forest, is more defensive, but successful. So I think West Ham have to figure out actually what it is they want.
I like Shaka pretending he cares.
I care deeply, Dan.
I like this, Craig. Ready? Why is Kirkes struggling at Liverpool after having such a great season at Bournemouth? Is it the pressure of a big club, or are there parts of the game that you've seen an issue with?
Positioning.
He was taken off, wasn't he, because of the yellow card?
Positioning. I noticed it at the Community Shield.
Were you there? Just waiting for that.
They can't send me anywhere without him thinking I'm bragging about it. I mean, it's hardly a bragging going to Wembley.
Well, I don't know why you bring up the Community Shield.
Because
What about the other game, the games that actually matter? The Premier League matches.
My point being is, that's when it manifested itself in a Liverpool jersey. It was exposed by Palace. His positioning was poor, and that's continued on. He did okay against Madueke in the Arsenal game, but it was hell for leather, last minute challenges, dangerous stuff. So I think his positioning is, along, and it's also, it's not easy going in, I'd imagine, to play alongside Van Dijk on that side. Even though you think, well, it should be easier. It's the expectation,
right,
of him being out of position and Van Dijk going, hey, you probably didn't have that.
And then you start overthinking it, and then
then you start thinking about your position. And Stevie will tell you, having played fullback, but then you start thinking about it rather than it happen naturally. So when you start thinking about, am I in the right position? It takes away from the other things. Whereas when Robertson was flying at his best, and Alexander-Arnold less so, because his defending was always a very touchy subject. But Robertson was really just natural for him. Getting in that position, working with Van Dijk, getting forward, making sure he was covering. I think he's struggling with that at the moment. So I think a bit of everything. Confidence, positioning, expectation, and he didn't have a very good game for Hungary either against Portugal when he gave the ball away for Portugal's winning goal.
It's a strange question. Shaka, with all the pressure managers get, is it time for us to think more about manager welfare in the same way we think about player welfare?
Do we really think about player welfare?
I don't know if we do, really.
In any meaningful way?
No.
So, what's the question?
I don't. Should we think? I don't know.
I think we'll move on because it's.
Does Pedri make the starting 11 of any club in the world?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, sensational.
Any team.
Manchester City and Newcastle have Thursday Champions League matches and they play Sunday in the Premier League. Is that fair?
If they were playing in the Europa League, Craig's favourite competition,
Yes.
he seemed really upset that
Yeah.
there may not be Europa League games this week. That's the same ask, and none of the Europa League teams fussed about it. So,
And there's Wednesday, Saturday.
Listen,
it's the
you
same.
can't have it. Not everybody can play on the Tuesday, and I'm sure there'll be times those teams will play on the Tuesday or the Wednesday. I'm sick of hearing about this.
Should Villa fans be worried?
3 days rest.
Oh, right. That's okay. I was going to move on because you're sick of it.
No, but I'm sick of people talking about as if 3 days is not enough time for. Spare me your sports scientists. Just spare me the lactic acid tests and the drawing the blood because he can't play because his blood levels at this. It's 3 days. It's not ideal. It's not perfect, but we just did it all the time.
of all the things you'd be upset about, I didn't think it'd be this, you know.
Why?
Or lactic
Why have
acid.
you not met?
How did no?
No, but it's those scientists that go into the manager's office and go, so-and-so can't... Well, I recommend so-and-so has 57.5 minutes this weekend because his blood level and his lactic acid are at... I mean, what can he not... Seriously?
Should Villa fans be worried about their team? No wins and no goals after 4 matches, Craig.
Yeah, but, I mean, they should be concerned about the form, but come on. You know, we can't even be questioning this manager. You know, he's done so much good at that club that, you know, I think Villa are just going... And if I see anybody out there talking about him being sacked and all that, they just bury their head. You know what I mean? 'Cause these things happen sometimes. They didn't have a great summer. They didn't have a great summer in terms of spending, off the top of my head. They've been about losing players. They almost lost their goalkeeper.
Yes.
To Man United as well. So it's been a surprise, but that manager's, we all know that he's very good at his job.
Final question. I was looking up where Leeds are in the table because it's about Leeds as well. Leeds have won 1. Start, bench or drop. Who's getting sacked first? Potter, Amorim or Farke?
Barker.
Really?
Yeah.
Potter.
Not Potter?
Oh.
Wake up, Jack.
What do you think I
What do
said?
you think he said?
I don't know.
Arnie Slot.
I don't know.
Has it been a long day?
Yeah. Yeah, Potter.
Potter?
Oh, Potter. Come on, liven up, man.
Depressed.
Huh?
I'm depressed.
He's
Well,
back in Connecticut.
yeah. Well, what about...
What says you?
What?
Potter, Amorim, Farke?
Potter.
That's it. That brings us to the end of today's show.
sick of
Thank you very much.
Fuck, I'm going back to Farker.
Yeah, that's
Farker
it.
it is.
Craig's back tomorrow to reflect on the opening day of the Champions League. Have a lovely time.